You didn't do anything wrong. But you're still explaining yourself. Again. And again. And again. Let me just clarify. I didn't mean it that way. I hope you don't think I'm being rude. Every sentence feels like you're begging someone to understand you. But here's the truth. Every time you explain who you are to the wrong people, you abandon who you are for yourself. You think you're being kind, polite, reasonable. But what you're actually doing is leaking power, leaking confidence, leaking peace. There comes a point when over-explaining becomes a form of emotional slavery. You chain yourself to the reactions of others. And the Stoics? They cut that chain clean. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Marcus Aurelius. That's the rule. Simple. Unshakable. Freeing. Welcome to true Stoic mindset, where you learn not how to please, but how to stand. Today, we're going to break the cycle of over-explaining. You'll discover why silence is not weakness, it's mastery. And why being misunderstood might just be your greatest freedom. Stay with me, this could set your mind free in ways you never expected. The trap of over-explaining. What are you really defending? Let's be brutally honest. When you keep explaining yourself, you're not seeking clarity. You're seeking permission. Permission to exist. To say no. To disagree. To live according to your values, without being judged. But that's not freedom. That's a trap. Over-explaining is not communication. It's defense, against an invisible attack. And behind that defense? A deep, often hidden fear. If they misunderstand me, they'll reject me. If I don't justify myself, they'll think I'm selfish, arrogant, cold. If I don't explain, I'll be alone. That fear is ego in disguise. It disguises itself as politeness, thoughtfulness, consideration. But underneath? It's insecurity begging to be seen as good. The Stoics saw this clearly. Epictetus said, "If you seek truth, be prepared to be misunderstood. Because here's the truth. No one who truly sees you needs you to explain. And those who constantly need explanations? They're not listening. They're judging. They're controlling. Every explanation becomes a performance. And eventually you lose sight of who you were before the performance began. So pause and ask, am I speaking to connect, or to convince? The first builds trust. The second builds chains. And chains have no place in the life of someone who seeks inner freedom. The Stoic rule, speak only when it serves virtue. The Stoics had no interest in small talk, social masks, or endless explanations. They had a rule. A razor-sharp filter for speech. If it is not true, do not say it. If it is not right, do not do it. Marcus Aurelius. Not. If they understand it, say it. Not. If it makes them comfortable, explain it. Truth and virtue. That's it. Most people speak to be accepted. Stoics speak to be aligned. You don't owe anyone an emotional report about your every choice. Not for resting. Not for declining. Not for leaving a toxic situation. Not for choosing yourself. Because over-explaining doesn't strengthen relationships. It dilutes truth. It waters down conviction. It teaches the world that your boundaries are negotiable if they just pressure you enough. But here's the shift. You are not responsible for someone else's confusion. You are responsible for your own clarity. So speak, but not to prove. Speak, but only when silence would be a lie. Speak, when the words align with who you are, not who they want you to be. The Stoic speaks less. But when they do, their words carry the weight of truth. And when they are silent, that silence speaks even louder. Why you owe no one an explanation for your standards. You don't owe anyone an explanation for going to bed early, choosing solitude, saying no to things that drain you, walking away from people who disrespect you, raising your standards, even if it makes others uncomfortable. Still, you feel that urge to explain, to justify, to soften the edge of your truth so others don't feel cut by it. But the moment you start apologizing for your values, you've already stepped out of alignment. Stoicism isn't about being rigid. It's about being rooted. Rooted in virtue, clarity, and intention. Marcus Aurelius didn't ask Rome to approve his discipline. He didn't run around explaining why he led with restraint, or why he rose before dawn. He simply lived it. Consistently. Without apology. Because your standards are your internal code. Not a negotiation with public opinion. And here's the deeper truth. People who don't respect your standards won't suddenly respect you more when you explain them. In fact, the more you explain, the more you train them to question you, to expect you to bend. But a Stoic doesn't bend for validation. They bend only for wisdom, for growth, not pressure. So the next time you feel that rising discomfort, that inner pull to make it easier for them, pause. You don't need permission to live with principle. You don't need to translate your integrity into a language others accept. Because integrity doesn't speak to the crowd. It answers only to conscience. And conscience, when steady, never begs to be understood. When to speak, Stoic clarity versus emotional reaction. Silence isn't always the answer. But neither is talking just to defend your pride. The Stoics didn't vow to be mute. They vowed to be intentional. There's a difference between clarity and reaction. Clarity speaks when something matters. Reaction speaks when ego feels threatened. Clarity says, "This is what I believe. This is what I choose. I'm sharing this not to be liked, but to be understood." Reaction says, "Don't judge me. You're wrong about me. Please believe I'm a good person." And just like that, you're no longer centered. You're chasing validation. The Stoic doesn't run after approval. They wait. They weigh. They respond, from stillness, not from panic. Seneca said, "Speech is silver, but silence is golden, until speech is required." So how do you know when to speak? When your words serve truth, not pride. When your intent is clarity, not control. When your message uplifts, not justifies. Because if you speak while emotionally hijacked, you're not explaining. You're unraveling. But when you speak from groundedness, your words don't need force. They carry weight simply because they come from a steady place. And the world listens differently when it feels that steadiness. The power of stillness. Let your life explain itself. The world doesn't need another speech. It needs more stillness, more presence, more people who live what they believe, without broadcasting it. You don't need to explain who you are. Just be it. Fully. Repeatedly. Without apology. Because the most undeniable people are the ones who don't try to convince anyone. They're too busy living the proof. The Stoics weren't interested in convincing. They were interested in aligning. Letting their conduct carry the message. Letting their daily disciplines speak louder than their opinions. If someone questions your choices, you don't owe them a slideshow presentation. You owe them nothing. Except perhaps a quiet consistency that makes their doubt irrelevant over time. When you stop over-explaining, people may misunderstand you. That's okay. Because your real explanation is your energy. Your consistency. your standards, your results. Marcus Aurelius never wrote, "Make sure everyone knows why you live this way." He wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. So stop talking. Start showing. And let your calm presence, your daily discipline, your quiet confidence, say everything they need to know. Because the loudest thing about you should never be your words. It should be your life." Reclaiming peace, when silence becomes your shield. There's a difference between silence that hides and silence that protects. The first comes from fear. The second comes from strength. When you've explained yourself too many times, when your voice has been twisted, questioned, picked apart, you learn the power of choosing silence. Not as surrender, but as a shield. Because not every opinion deserves a response. Not every misunderstanding deserves a correction. Not every accusation deserves your emotional labor. Silence is not weakness. It's a boundary. It's saying, "I value my peace more than your approval." The Stoics didn't speak to satisfy noise. They spoke when principle called for it. And when it didn't, they held still. Epictetus taught, "Keep silence for the most part, and speak only when you must." In that silence you protect energy. You diffuse drama. You rise above the chaos instead of stepping into it. When you withhold explanation, you reclaim your time, your attention, your sanity. You no longer ask, "How do I make them understand me?" You begin asking, "What is worth disturbing my peace for?" The answer, most of the time, is nothing. And that clarity? That restraint? That quiet discipline? That's what makes you untouchable. You're not here to be understood. You're here to be aligned. You won't always be understood. And that's not a flaw. It's a feature of living with depth. Because the deeper your values, the fewer people will recognize them. The more principle you carry, the more resistance you'll meet. But let this truth settle in. You weren't born to be decoded by everyone. You were born to live in alignment with yourself. Marcus Aurelius didn't beg Rome to get him. He got up early. He served. He wrote. He lived his code. You don't owe the world a translation of your integrity. You owe yourself a life that reflects your standards. So next time you're tempted to over-explain, pause. Breathe. Ask, is this for clarity or for approval? And if it's the latter, choose stillness instead. Let your actions speak. Let your energy tell the story. Let your silence become sacred. Because you're not here to be understood. You're here to be clear. You're here to be disciplined. You're here to be free. If this message grounded you, subscribe to True Stoic Mindset, where we trade validation for virtue and noise for clarity. Speak less. Live more.